Alrighty guys, thanks for tuning in to Trip Whip. My name's Jack, and today I'm going to be talking about one of the most intense experiences available to human beings, which is the DMT come up. Yes, the DMT breakthrough is absolutely mind-blowing and intense, but oftentimes you're actually not really the same, like you're not in the same mind that you are when you're sober, when you're in that state. Especially in my case, it wasn't too intense or it wasn't overwhelming because I felt like I was something else, something that was familiar with that place. The DMT come up is very different because it is going to shatter your reality while you are still in the same mind. And I remember the first time it happened to me, it was so beyond what I expected. It is absolutely terrifying, which we'll get into very shortly. But right off the bat, this video is being made to explain why this drug is not a recreational substance. So I am not promoting the illegal use of this drug. Quite the opposite. I am trying to educate people as to why this is a potentially traumatic drug if you were to use it as something that is just a bit of fun to do with your friends. It is absolutely not that drug. Now, you actually will have visuals take place, open-eyed visuals take place, that will affect your scenery before you blast off and go somewhere else. And they are extremely powerful. So the first one worth mentioning, which is probably what a lot of people would expect, is you may see like really complicated, trippy patterns in your environment. Very similar to what you'd see on LSD, where basically it's like transparent patterns that are grafted to specific objects. So it's not like an overlay. It's as if they're like, these patterns have some sort of 3D tracker. So if you see like a certain set of geometric shapes spawning on your TV, if you were to look somewhere else and then look back, they're going to be on the TV still. And as you look away, they're going to stay on that TV. They're not going to just, leave the border of the TV's frame and blend with other things, which is really interesting to me. No one really talks about it that much, how strange this is, this effect, because it's like a lot of people will say that it feels almost like it's enhancing your vision so you can see the patterns that have always been there, which does sound kind of insane, but you have to think about how kind of strange it is that you can have these hallucinations that somehow are aware of the distance of a particular object, and that these hallucinations know somehow not to leave the frame of that object when you look away. So if it's not actually you having enhanced vision, then somehow these hallucinations are like aware of the schemas that are created inside your mind, and they become involved with them. It's not just like they're taking over your sensory experience, it's also taking over your mental experience. It's phenomenally convincing, just these visuals themselves. Now, there may be another reason, of course, that I'm not thinking of. I'm not making any claims as to what is really going on, but it is definitely something that's very interesting that for some reason not many people talk about. Although, after saying all of that, in my case on DMT, I did start seeing patterns actually spiraling through the air as well. But even then, it was really interesting. I would see them shooting through the air, and it wouldn't be like I looked this way and then, it would follow my vision. It would be like over here, I'd look over here, I'd look back, and it's still there. And yeah, it was like this transparent spiral that was just shooting through. And as the DMT was coming on more intense, the visuals, these hallucinations that I couldn't see while I was sober, they became easier to see than the outside world that was originally there. The other visual hallucination that I mentioned, there are lots of other ones, but the main one that I think is worth mentioning is I think it is very common for you to see things in a holographic way. I heard Psych Substance talk about this, and he described it as everything appearing digital, and I believe he's describing the same thing that I get. Basically, things will look as if it is a hologram. Like it's not transparent, but there is this sense of transparency to what you're seeing. There is a sense of shallowness to the image, like a hologram. What's interesting about it is it won't necessarily strike you as like, oh, this is an illusion, or this is like me seeing reality in a fake way. It's more like when you're sober, you have this inherent sense that everything is physical, and then you take this DMT and it's just switching something in your brain where it's like, actually, this isn't physical. What's around you is mental. It's like mental, but it's also digital in the sense that it feels like it's a hologram that's been projected. That's how I describe it anyway. Before I move on quickly to the more extreme effects, with this digital perception, I guess, of reality, if you are with people, it will affect the people around you as well. When I was tripping, I had a mate looking after me, And very quickly he just stopped being this like familiar human being, and he turned into, or like I saw him as, this energy I was describing before, that holographic energy, this weird, it's almost digital energy that had been composed into a structure of some kind, but it wasn't familiar to me. So I remember it was a little bit digital, but it's also a little bit something else that I just can't explain. Like, I don't want to pretend like everything you're going through is familiar and easily explainable. It's not. Most of the stuff is going to be something that you've just never experienced before. Now, if you've taken a high enough dose, then let's say you've taken 3 tokes over a set period of time, or you've taken 2 really massive tokes very quickly. It doesn't matter. Basically, if you've taken enough to have a blast off experience, the next thing you're going to feel is an incredibly intense body sensation. It is one of the most intense body sensations that you can have that isn't necessarily painful. Like, it's the most intense, uncomfortable sensation you can have. There isn't quite the right word for it. It's so overwhelming, yet it doesn't quite cross into pain. Some people will describe it feeling like you're being launched in a rocket, and you're just feeling like insane G-forces hitting you, just like not beyond anything you've ever experienced before. Hence why it's called a blast-off dose. For me, I guess I could see that, but for me, when I hear that, it's just like such an underwhelming description. It doesn't capture how intense it is at all. When I went through this, the way I described it is it felt like I was imploding in on myself. Like everything was collapsing in on itself. What was so unique about this was it didn't feel like it was just a body sensation. This was body, but it was also mental. It felt like literally reality itself was now collapsing in on itself, as if a black hole had suddenly just like manifested inside my body. Like I was at the central point of this supermassive black hole that was sucking in everything in reality. I do remember distinctly having I can't remember if I saw it. I don't think I saw it. I think it was more like just very quickly I had this like visual image come into my head when I could feel the sensation kicking on DMT of a star imploding in on itself. Because for me, a human being just wasn't epic enough to capture the sensation. It was going beyond what myself as a human being could experience. That's how intense it started to feel. And that's why it's so hard to describe, because it's not just like a physical sensation, it's a mental sensation, or almost like a mental realization that, you know, this isn't just something that's going to be localized inside your brain, or at least it's not going to feel like it's just an experience that's taking place in your brain. It is feeling like your reality's being destroyed. And alongside reality, when I say reality, I mean that's everything. So it is things like, you know, the outside world, the room you're in, the body that you see, but it's also your inner world that's being destroyed. So your thoughts, your senses, and even your sense of self. Like, it's everything. You have to understand how subjective reality is to realize how intense this experience is, because it is tearing everything that is subjective apart. And all of your reality is subjective. Like, absolutely everything. That's what these DMT trips are going to make you realize. The fact that they can so completely shatter everything around you and alter everything that you're experiencing. Everything. Like, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And it makes you realize just how fragile this whole experience is. I won't go into it deeply now because it's a little bit off subject, but like, I don't know why, it almost makes me emotional. Like, it's so intense. It's so intense. It's insane. I will say this though. I believe this is the reason why a very common description of the DMT come up, or what will start to take place during the DMT come up, is a sense of the tripper dying. Like, you will feel like you are dying. And it makes sense, because everything that you've ever used to navigate reality with is dying. The idea that there's an experience beyond it is actually more frightening than the idea that you're dying, because you're like, well, what am I about to experience? If I'm not going to be using my thoughts, if I'm not going to be using my sense of self, if I'm not going to be, you know, feeling like I'm inside a body, what am I about to experience? What is beyond this? And that's why we can't explain it. If it's a proper, genuine ego death, then there are just no words that can capture it accurately. It's beyond everything that we use to map our lives with. The final thing that I'm going to mention that you may experience during the DMT come up is you may feel like your voice, your inner voice, disassociates from you. And what I mean by that is it will feel like it doesn't belong to you anymore. When we're sober, our mind is kind of unified so that everything that we would say is mind itself, we associate it with belonging to us and me. Like, it is all me and it is all one thing. But on DMT, your mind is going to fragment and you are going to feel like aspects of your mind don't belong to you anymore. The first thing you're going to probably notice this with is your inner voice. For me, I remember as this collapsing sensation was kicking in, I was thinking to myself, holy shit, like, what have I just done? Like, I was expecting something intense, but I wasn't expecting it to be so, like, all-encompassing of my whole reality. Like, there is no escape. I can feel like I'm about to go somewhere and I have no influence over what is about to happen. And I felt like a deeper part of me, a deeper voice, said to me, it's okay. You knew it was going to be like this. Just listen to what we're telling you. And when I heard that, I was like, that's a weird thing for me to think. What do I mean by that? Like, what is it that I'm meant to be listening to? So I remember as I literally actively tried to listen to something while my body was, being destroyed. Like, it was hard not to focus in on my body and focus in on this something else. As I'm listening for something else, that's when the entities just swooped in and they began, whispering their crazy secrets to me. And that's beyond the DMT come up then. That's when you transition to the next phase. But I think I'm going to end it there. I think that's all the really prominent effects that you're going to experience during a DMT come up itself, from the minor sensations and hallucinations you experience all the way to the very intense, very extreme tactile and, mental effects, I guess you describe them as. But yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to subscribe for more trippy content. Leave a like, it helps the channel out a lot. And before I go, I will just quickly mention this video's sponsor, Natural Shilajit. It isn't going to make you trip, but it absolutely will make you feel so much better in many different ways. Increased energy levels, reduced stress levels. It may sound like bullshit, but there's a lot of science behind it. I was very skeptical and I've been taking it now for 1 year and I absolutely feel the difference when I'm not on it. So if trying out this ancient Ayurvedic medicine does sound like something you'd be into, feel free to check the link in the description below and use the code TRIPWHIP to get 10% off. Otherwise, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you're having a fantastic day and I will make a new video very soon. Peace.